So when I put these seats in, I had to take out the gas tank. And on these older trucks, the gas tank sits behind the seat and it comes out here. A couple reasons I wanted to change that was, one, I needed the room for the seats, and it's just kind of dangerous to have the gas inside the cab with you, and every time you fill it up it stinks. So for the time being, I took this old car tank and ratchet strapped it to the frame, which it worked, but it's kind of ghetto, and I need this to be flush so that way I can start making the bed. So I went on to LMC Truck, and they have these gas tanks that will sit down between the frame rails. And I bought the sending unit, a rollover valve, and so we should be able to get rid of that because the truck looks ghetto enough as it is. Drop this tank in and be good to go. All right, so there it is, all done, installed, filled up with gas. It was pretty easy install. All you had to do was cut those two rivets holding on this little spare tire cross member, push the tank up from underneath, slip the 4 bolts through, hook up fuel line, hook up a ground, and extend your fuel gauge wire, which I ran along with all the tail light wiring. I ended up not using the straps. I don't know if you can see, but there's a bolt there and a bolt there, and it's pieces of angle iron welded onto the tank, so you can bolt it that way or use the straps, whatever you want to do. And as for the cap, since a normal fleet side bed is not going back on, I wanted something easy and would sit down low. That way while I build a bed, it's out of the way. So I found this 1.5" cap that is too big for that fuel nozzle. Then I found this adapter that it fits snug over that. And then this cap fits over both of them. Then you can either snug it down or leave it loose as long as it's watertight. And then right here is that rollover vent valve, which I have going into some 1/4" fuel line that runs sideways and then dumps out the bottom of the frame. Okay, so the next fuel issue that we have was the carburetor was leaking at just about every possible place it can leak from, which is making it bog real hard whenever under acceleration and just not wanting to run real good. So we went to O'Reilly's and we got a carb kit for it. We're gonna replace every gasket in this thing. And I already took this off of the truck, and I didn't show that because it's kind of boring. You just have 4 bolts holding the carb down, take off your vacuum lines, fuel lines, and throttle linkage, and it's done. So I'd give you a step-by-step, but honestly, I've never done one of these, so it's gonna be a learning experience for me. It looks not too bad inside, but it's still pretty dirty, so we're gonna get that cleaned up. All right, so we got the carb all tore down and cleaned up. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was. I just went through with the toothbrush and carb cleaner and cleaned everything out, and then took a air hose and blew everything out. And just, you really want to make sure that all the tiny little holes and everything are free of any clogs or debris. All right, so here's the carb all cleaned up and put back together. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the outside. I was mainly focused on getting the inside cleaned up and just getting the new gaskets on there. Did get the inside way cleaner than it was. Whole bunch of dirt came out, and got everything hooked back up. Have the new fuel filter is the old one, so I'll get the fuel filter in there, get a new fuel filter on the truck, put the carb on the truck, and we'll see how it runs. So now we got the fuel system, for now, completely done. And the next thing that I was gonna jump on is changing out cab mounts. So as you can see, this one is pretty bad, pretty squished down and cracked out. And over on the driver's side, we're completely missing the mount there. So we got on the LMC truck and we got some neoprene cab mounts, which these won't squish down like the rubber do, so it'll be a little bit harsher ride, but they'll last way longer. And I'd rather it last and look better and not come apart than a tiny bit of ride quality. So these ones should just unbolt. The problem with it is they want you to reuse the bushings inside of the mounts, and the ones in this truck are rusted out. And the bolts are rusted out also, and the ones on the floors, the bolt is welded to the floor there. So I'm gonna have to cut that weld and pull the bolt out in order to put a new bolt in. And the best way I think I'm gonna go about that is using a Dremel, just to cut that weld out and not try and damage the floor at all, because in that area it's pretty decent. So I'm gonna get those cut out and then run over to the shop, make some new bushings, get some hardware, and get the new cab mounts all mounted in, get this sitting right. All right, so I went ahead and got the body mounts in, which was pretty straightforward. All you have to do is loosen all of them, put a jack underneath the cab, lift it up. I did passenger side and driver's side at separate times, just keep everything aligned. And the kit comes with instructions. The bushing inside here you had to cut out. Mine were pretty rusted at the bottom, but luckily that part got cut off and I had to make new bushings for the front for. Now, normally the back has 7/16 inch bolts, and I wanted to go 1/2 inch. And what they have in here in the back is a caged nut. So normally this nut sits on there, and then it has a cage holding it on. That way you can run the bolt in from the bottom, no problem. Well, I just stuck the bolt in, hammered up on it until a tab was broken, and then you can just pull it out with the pry bar, which you'd have to do if it was broken or if you're going with a bigger bolt like I am, and then you just run a nut down on top there. The front had 3/8 carriage bolts, and they were pretty rusted out, and I wanted to go with something bigger, so I got some 1/2 inch carriage bolts, and then I made some new washers. These are just like how the original ones were, but with a 1/2 inch square punched in them instead of a 3/8. And all the holes through the cab and through the mounts are big enough to fit 1/2 inch. It's just these washers that hold it in place are gonna need changed, and those nuts are gonna need to be changed. And since I was changing everything, I went ahead and changed, sorry it's kind of dark, but the front floor cab mount bolts, the driver's side was pretty rusty, so I decided to change them both. I'll cut the weld, busted the bolt up from top, and I'm gonna put some new bolts down through. So pretty straightforward. It takes a little bit more time, but I don't know, I just did it for the peace of mind. It's not needed. You could definitely leave what was in there already, but I'm gonna get this wrapped up and then we'll be done with body mounts. We got the linkage back on, we got the fuel hooked up, we got a brand new fuel filter here, and we have the brand new fuel filter inside the carb. So we are going to crank this up and see what all I didn't put back together right. Okay guys, here it is the next morning. Carb's completely rebuilt. After putting that carb on, I'll give you guys a cold start here. It's about 35 degrees. Truck's been sitting all night. Give it one pump and there it is. Runs a lot better and it sounds a lot better. And the most important thing, it's not dripping fuel out like it was. So, carb rebuilt, the new gas tank, and the new body mounts all the way around. And we welded on some exhaust tips that pointed out to the side and down. That way not so much stuff was blowing up on the tank. Here's some of those old body mounts if you're wondering. They were splitting out and all pushed down, and some of them were just non-existent. They weren't in, the front ones weren't in too bad a shape, but it'll definitely be a lot better now. And the reason I wanted to do that was to get the cab sitting completely how it's supposed to be before I start any welding on it. And I wanted everything to be sitting completely right before then. That it wouldn't be tweaked at all and everything would be in the exact spot. But we're getting ready to head to the shop. We're going to weld up the patch plate for here. But that'll be all for this video. Tune in to the next one to see me start on bodywork.